The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, welcome to the Political Dice.
MPC ebyobufuzi.
It's controversial,
Purely political,
well researched,
accurate and global.
Oyagala bya Parliamentary oba council.
Yes, State House oba ghetto.
Ani ayuga ku ground.
Ani gwe babuze.
Okimanyi nga Dr. Kiza Besigye aleesa amaanyi.
Olwofadda bafutoli abateeseemu obuvaazi.
Oba yo DP eri kuki?
Olwojema.
Bano ba MKCG bo baddawa.
Abo bafuna CDF baamala tebabanja. Olwo baba ate bange bali kuki?
Abo bo akina kulabisa simanyanga posturing tebabiri bali mu structure building. Naye ate ono ye.
Ani oyo oba?
Ye ali kuki?
Oyo tumuleketa gamba apanyiga mawe.
Ebe ndabena birindira no ku the Political Dice ku the Alternative Dig Talk nange teditenja ewamune
Farida Bikobere
buli wa Sunday
sawa 2.
At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sewagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machindye, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for legal matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besigye every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, the discussion is already on as we are starting the program. My name is Edgar Matthew Karohanga. It's the first day of July 2024. This is the Hotline Show. It happens every Monday starting from 7 to 9 p.m. We're always here talking about Uganda. And of course, these conversations we have here are not only to critique government or to critique the people in power, but literally we are trying to create a better Uganda for all of us. So when we talk about these things, we hope that at the end of the day, there's going to be a country that is better, and Uganda is going to develop like it has never before. A lot of news is going on in the media fraternity. Today, I am elated and excited to report that the Kabaka of Buganda has already addressed the country. Many theories, myths, misconceptions have been shared around the life of the Kabaka of Buganda. And a lot of assertions have actually been made by a couple of individuals. Some people saying that he's unwell, he's not safe, where is he? And many people of Buganda have been asking that particular question. In the afternoon today, a video was released of the Kabaka in Namibia, and he was trying to highlight on some of the issues that are affecting his life, and also sending a couple of messages to his subjects right here in Buganda. A lot of elation, especially on social media, has been expressed by a couple of people. The challenge is we still have some people who do not believe that the Kabaka is well, and there is a phenomenon that has been going on, particularly today, and many saying that he might have been coerced. Some people are even asserting that that is AI, and a lot of things. So the question is, what do Ugandans want to believe? But that is a topic that you can discuss on your own. FDC was in the eastern region, particularly the Bugiso sub-region, and a lot of energy was experienced there. We saw multitudes of individuals, and this comes at a time when they were from Teso region, where Patrick Amriotoboy hails from, and of course they received the same, or at least a number that you can say is equivalent to what was in Bugiso, which is a sign to some people that the FDC is still thriving. But the question is, are these supporters actually people who are creating change? Are they voters? Is this support? Do they come to actually listen to the quality of the message? Do they come because they love FDC as a political party? Or do they come for the fun and the entertainment that is always around such rallies? And it brings me at a point that I want my panelists to actually talk about tonight, is the politics of identity. Something that President Museveni has always tried to reiterate and say this is something wrong. The politics of identity, my tribe, my religion is not what we should stand for. Last month we had Mr. Gen Obigirwa Moses, one of the members of the NUP, start what he called a new pressure group, the Eastern Revolutionary Platform, ERP. He says that in doing this, they are going to support the causes of the Busoga region and the Eastern as a whole. They say in the national cake, they've not got enough, they've never taken power in this country, and he believes it's a time we go back to our identities in order for us to have at least or to have something to leverage on when you are, talking about power. He says as a group, as blocks, Eastern, Western, Northern regions, and as a people, it's something that we need to, start again, or a conversation that we need to have again. So he started what he called the Eastern Revolutionary Platform, ERP. And this, I'm talking about it because it links to the FDC numbers. Patrick Amwea-Toboy receiving numbers in Teso, then FDC also receiving numbers in Bugisu. Do we think that people are already in the identity itself? And what does this actually mean to the politics of the country? Does this bring division? Does this bring tension? Well, at the end of the day, people need to actually sit back and go back to their regional, inclinations. And of course, later on, we shall talk about the topic of the day. The president refused to assent to the Appropriation Bill 2024. What that means is that the budget that he read to us in June, that was last month, and the one that he presented to Parliament and of course to you as the members, is actually not going to be implemented right about now. Now the question is, does the president have such power? Does he have the power to actually refuse to assent to a bill? Is he the one supposed to appropriate? Because the Constitution of Uganda clearly stipulates that the appropriation of the budget shall be, and it uses the word shall, by the Parliament, the members of Parliament. So is the President Museveni trying to hijack the powers of the legislature? Is this becoming a rubber stamp parliament? Or the president actually has a basis for what he's deciding? And he also noted out that there's some inconsistencies that were added in the budget. That was, remember the budget, by the time we were presenting it to the people, there was an influx of around 12 trillion or 14 trillion that was inserted on the last minute. Is this one of the reasons that the president is not assenting to this particular appropriation bill? And of course, what does that mean? Because if the president refuses to assent to this particular bill 4 days to the beginning of the new financial year, how does that look out? And remember, we've already started the financial year today, 1st of July. So it's a question that we're going to be, it's a topic that we're going to be talking about tonight. And of course, I've already been joined by a full panel. I have a gentleman from the UPC, that is none other than Joseph Ochieno. He has not been here for a while, but today he's right here with us. And of course, we have the usual panelists. That is Mr. Charles Kazooba. He is the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. And the gentleman from what he calls the mighty NRM, that is Honorable Major Retired Pollar Awich. He is the Director for External Affairs at the ruling party, that is the National Resistance Movement. Allow me start with you, sir. You're welcome. It's been a while.
But thank you, not clarified which UPC.
He can clarify. Because for me, I know one UPC, even if we try to divide, it still remains UPC.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, actually, yes. No, there can only be one Uganda People's Congress. And that's the Uganda People's Congress that taught people politics, the Uganda People's Congress that helped Museveni to grow. You know, he would have been wrapped up by jiggers like jiggers disturbed Busoga, and the Uganda People's Congress that gave him free education, the Uganda People's Congress that transported him to Dar es Salaam, which opened up opportunities for him, the Uganda People's Congress that gave him a job without knowing his father in presence of a very prestigious job, the Uganda People's Congress that helped him escape Idi Amin and kept him in Tanzania, and the Uganda People's Congress that has built systems and institutions in this country that Museveni has failed to do in 40 years. That's the Uganda People's Congress that I represent, and that's the only Uganda People's Congress, and it's also the Uganda People's Congress which, after Mr. Museveni, has got a burden of responsibility to bring this country together, heal it, reconcile it, cleanse the mess Museveni will be leaving us with, including excess budgetary mess, and restore fiscal responsibility, ensure Parliament does what it's supposed to do, ensure the judiciary does what it's supposed to do, creates an enabling environment for you guys in the fourth estate, and make sure that the fifth estate, who are the citizens of this country, live freely, democratically, and with hope for their children, so that their children don't have to go into the streets like in Kenya to seek to claim their very basic rights. I have been away for a few weeks, and I'm delighted to be here. This platform is good, you know, and I'm delighted that you guys invited me here to be part, in fact, the initial lead panelist, later joined by my good brother, Comrade Awich, with whom we've been here.
From the mighty NRM?
From the NRA that he calls the mighty NRM. But under the circumstance, after 40 years, yeah, there is something there. I cannot just play it down completely like that. Now, while I was away, I returned to a home in which my other family members were busy elsewhere. And just within 2 weeks, my home was full of dust. And today, between the last meeting I had, Comrade Awich and I normally have opportunities to compare notes brotherly, you know, before coming to the studios, but we couldn't do that, but normally we would do that. So I had a meeting elsewhere. And I have had 2 requests. One, actually, I've not read it. But the other, somebody I genuinely don't know who met me on the social media platform. And the person, ironically, their platform, I mean, their background, and what's the background, shows that they're LC 3-something NRA candidature person for somewhere. Not a councillor, but a candidate for council. But the person is asking me for money and is telling me that they've got problems feeding themselves. And the person is also talking about school fees for their child. This is somebody I've not met. The other is a message I saw just as I was coming to the studios, and somebody whom I know who is making a request related to education. So, you know, while I was away, I was lucky to visit part of the UK where I spent most of my time, both working and living. And I was delighted that I was able to meet a definitely incoming member of Parliament this week. By the end of this week, my area, Cumberland Peckham, where I lived for a long time, will be having a new member of Parliament. And the new member of Parliament is almost certainly going to be somebody of African origin, somebody recently from Sierra Leone, and somebody replacing the mother of Parliament, because elections are taking place in Britain this week. And I envy this. I'll talk about it much later. I envy this. And so I look around and say, look, there are normal systems, there are normal countries. This lady is Miata Fanbule, who is an economist in London, who went to Britain as a refugee just 25 or so years ago as a child from Sierra Leone, and contributed net to British government policy intervention, the Blair policy intervention in Sierra Leone at the time. and also working local government, I helped settle some of these people. And I'm saying, so in a way, while we talk our own national identity, the African question for refugees and the good thing that Uganda does, I think we should give ourselves credit. But you should also, because before we came on air, we had discussions around diversity, and just for avoidance of doubt, I think people's backgrounds should not be the big issue. The big issue should be what our contributions are to our nations, our communities, and particularly when we don't abuse our systems. But as I said, to do that and to go down there and be able to see a doctor and things are working well, and for within 18 months I found a different thing, and then I come home to my home and my home is full of dust. And I say, are we in prison for 40?
Now you're coming to a third world country. You didn't expect glitz and glamour here.
No, because we left glamour here. And you as an anchor, you as a presenter of a major talk, I want to challenge you.
Yes,
see
sir.
what is happening in Kenya. This morning I got a clip of William Ruto's interview, President Ruto's interview, being interviewed by 3 journalists the other day, you know? And there's a fantastic, but I think it's actually quite important.
Okay.
Fantastic interview.
In just
Meaning
in
the
just
3
10
people,
seconds, sir,
you could
please.
see the 3 journalists being genuine members of the fourth estate, subjecting the chief of the executive, you know, to a question about the death of their citizens. So I'm saying, likewise, there's no reason why we can dismiss the dust, which I find in Kampala, and the power that goes off the day I come back, and then I sleep for 10 hours without power. And yet there was power before NRA came to power.
Thank you so much. What was the coverage? We shall look at that maybe later. I also have Charles Kazooba, the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. Why are you smiling mischievously, sir?
You know, I enjoy UPC. UPC is the foundation of Uganda. This week I was reading about Kenya. Because of the riots, I went back to find out the causes. So there's a book called Kenya Looters and Grabbers. It's a book written by Joe Kamisi. It highlights corruption since colonial times to date. It shows you how people who founded that country messed it up. And because of that mess, these are the riots that we witness today, because no leader has come out to realign the governance in that country so that it benefits the young people. When I saw some of the snippets on the census, actually it got me more worried that 50% of Ugandans are 17 years and less. 50%, they can't vote. 50% of Ugandans in this country cannot vote in an election. Yet, there is a small group that has to make decisions for them. This is something that we should think about seriously as a country, because the people that are disgruntled are those young people. That's why you see those riots in Kenya. That's why you see in the last election, Bobi Wine manipulated the thinking of these young people to support him.
Manipulated.
He did, of course. Because when we talk of leaders, we really, there are certain categories of people we shouldn't even be accommodating.
Why do you think Bobi Wine is not the type of person that should be accommodated? What is leadership to you then?
Let's start with how he got to the party. Was that leadership? See how he has managed the party in the last 3 years. Is that leadership? Is that what this country deserves? Is this what we want as a country? So we must be serious. We must raise standards for the leaders that we want. If we don't, we shall continue witnessing what is happening in the parliament. See how parliament is run. It's like a kiosk.
Okay.
It's because Ugandans, as a community, we have failed to raise the bar high in terms of integrity. What credentials should a leader have for you to even compete for a political office? That is very, very crucial.
But lastly, on that particular issue, many young people look at Bobi Wine and they see themselves. They feel his story has inspired many of them. Even without being in a political office, he has always talked about the ills and the vices of society. Why do you want to downplay such a man with such a story?
I would have felt the same if I were still a teenager. But with my experiences, what I have seen, I'm not the kind of person that can easily be manipulated.
Okay, thank you. Let me just stop you there. Honorable Pollar Awich.
But before Major comes in, I wanted to wish him a birthday. Belated birthday.
Okay, happy belated birthday, sir.
You are now 50 something?
I'm actually 61.
61, yeah.
He's so bold to mention this age.
And I'm a June baby. And yes, so what did you say? You thought I would
because
talk about
people don't like to say their ages.
which I think is important. And since you raised it, and since I'm a political leader, it's also a very deliberate thing. I think it's part of what my brother's talking about. It's also partly integrity, but also maybe it has a message to certain people. In my case, I think it has a message to some people. Some people think I'm actually 50, so that means that I should be grateful to God, but also maybe I should be also saying that it's important that we eat well, we live well. Eating well does not mean eating meat. We look after ourselves, we care and take life and things like that.
Which is time.
No.
So
we thought we were adding value to the program.
As a government, you shouldn't worry.
Sorry.
And he seldomly interrupts any of you. So Honorable Which, please give us your
And that is what they always benefit from
the might.
From the discipline of a cadre like me. I don't interrupt.
Yes, I can agree that they always interrupt.
They always thank you, you agree. They interrupt me, I don't. But that is the discipline we have in the cadre. But
you really scored.
I also join all the same. Even with that interruption, I still want to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you, my brother.
Even with the interruption. And please, may you live to see your other generations.
We thank you.
And lead the Congress.
Amen. Thank you.
I was just hearing his argument about particular leaders. I'm glad it is not coming from me. I reserve my comment. But I found a contradiction because he had said that 50% don't vote, and yet some few people are making decisions on their behalf, and I think he considered it wrong. But then when you ask him that the youth have opinion about somebody, he said even him, he would have wanted it that way if he was in that age. So I find a contradiction because you are actually saying the 50% have a right to their views. And if their views is on this direction, so be it. Anyway, I'm not going to be a devil's advocate for now. But I find that contradiction so glaring. That you wish the 50% to express their interest. And you actually said if you were one, you would have done the similar thing. But now you are saying whatever they have wished is wrong.
No, what my message was that these 50% these young people are being manipulated by the current network of leaders in this country who lack integrity.
Yes, sir.
And these 50% are almost losing direction. They don't know. They can't
Please,
now
I hope I
separate
don't
right
surrender my time. Let me proceed.
from wrong.
Let me proceed now. At this stage, I think we have not gone into the substantive discussion.
No.
I find like my friends are making preambular comments. So I also want to make a preambular comment, especially about what took my attention over the week. Over the week, we had a meeting with President Museveni, where we means the clan leaders from Lango. The clan leaders from Lango are called Uitong. Uitong literally means the commander of the spear. Because in those days, communities were grouped into their communities, and a leader of a clan would be like the commander, because there was a need for self-defense. There was no total state machinery that could protect everybody. The court system, the police, the what. So your defense depended on your strength. And I think by the extension, it brought in cultures like, for example, if a woman produced outside wedlock before marriage, the father or the grandfather of that child would want the child to be his. Unlike now, where the state is there and the feeding is difficult, the grandfather is always quick to look for who impregnated his daughter. Who has impregnated my daughter? Take. But in those days, it would be a hard tug of war for you to pick a child from a grandfather. You'd pay a lot of cows, because the clan wanted to swell in numbers for defensive purposes. So rather than a father cursing a daughter for producing out of wedlock, would grab such a child.
Yes.
Yeah, would own a child. So the clan leaders in Lango are something compared to a Bataka in Buganda.
Exactly.
So now this is worth mentioning for me, because before that Museveni had met a Bataka, and he raised the issues. And I think I said it here. I said it here that President Museveni likes to meet them because he believes that it is an informal network system where even government can reach the people, even including a PDM. If you tell a clan leader that, please tell your clan members to take advantage of PDM, let them go for that money. You know, the message reaches. So while sometimes people were doubting, why has he met Bataka of Buganda? For us, we met this time. Although the broad thematic concern here was that there were tendencies of conflict between an outgoing chief, a loose king, so to say, the overall of Lango, and an incoming one. So President Museveni wanted to meet the clan leaders. I am one. I'm a very undisputed clan leader, and I'm lucky in that my clan actually dominates the geographical region. It is rare to find clans in Lango in one geographical region. You find members in Uyam district, and others in Leptong district, others in Kyoga. But for me, I take Utuke, and it spills over across the border to Agago.
Okay.
So my clan takes the geographical area of Utuke district. So I'm a clan leader of Okarawo clan. So it was good that the president met this informal in the sense that it's not a government, local ministry line.
System, yeah.
And we are 172 in total, 172 clan leaders in Ilang. And we met and we had a good time and we discussed. I just wish government could do that throughout, because he did meet the Bataka. And I know he has a system in Acholi as well. So that really came to my mind, especially that I'd raised it here.
And it brings me to one of the things that I wanted us to talk about, which is the politics of identity. Some of the opposition players...
I have one thing before you, but I wanted to ask him a question.
But I think I'm the one who's supposed to ask the question.
On that particular matter, because it is important, and his chairman has raised that point frequently.
Which chairman?
You as clan leaders, what is your contribution in preserving the customs of the African people. Do you document, for instance, those customs? I have.
You've asked the question, let him answer the question.
We do a lot of role for the clan. Definitely for documentation, it is documented. For example, I can trace my genealogy up to the first person who crossed from Sudan to Uganda. I can know my father is Ukwir, Ukwir was a son of Ubua, Ubua was a son of Tore, and about, by the way, two other people, and the guys were from Sudan. So we document, and we also document things like what you eat, what you do, how you dance. All those are documented, the do's and do nots. But more importantly, the clan system is doing a lot. For example, birth, marriage, and death is really a preserve of the clan. And that is why if I meet a clan brother, the question that I would ask is, how are the children? Because the children are taken as clan children, not your own children. Children is for all of us. Okay. And again, marriage, when somebody is marrying, bringing another clan member into this clan member, it becomes a concern of the entire clan.
Our wife.
You have to, yes, our wife, and they have to celebrate, they have to
because of time, I'm going to just request you to stop there and then bring to the question of politics of identity. Now, some of the opposition players believe that when they incline back to where they come from, the regions they come from, their tribe mates, it's going to be easy for them to stand ground and advocate for the things they believe in. And a case in point is the Eastern Revolutionary Platform by a gentleman known as General Gilwa Moses. Do you agree with this phenomenon? Is it time for us to go back to our default settings and say let's advocate for power as Busoga, as Toro, as Bunyoro? Because some people feel that some regions have actually been sidelined. Awich.
No, I don't think we need to use the politics of identity for politics. And that is why I was saying I find it only useful for informal system for livelihood. Like encouraging them to do the livelihood, to take advantage, and also the three items I talked about: marriage, death, and marriage, birth, marriage, and death. But if it is politics, for example, that you really need to form a political party for a tribe, I think we are past that, and I don't think it is.
But why is it that other issues you mentioned can unite people, but when it comes to taking power, you see this as a disuniting tool? Because at the end of the day, some people believe that even today, even if you don't talk about it, it's something that is not mentioned, but it's practical. Some people believe that the Western region, from the evolution, even in the NRA, were the core in taking this particular power, the core in the particular leadership. And some people can believe that it was an organization basically for the Western people, but was joined by other regions. So why is it that when it comes to
that is because the fact that the state structure that you want to take belongs to the entire country. So by nature you need to involve everybody. But what I talked about, birth, burial, marriage, you're not marrying for the entire country, or you're not burying for the entire country. So when you talk of a state power, you're talking of a body politics that encompasses the whole country. In fact, it would work against you even if you form a party for your tribe. I would imagine that you'd be the last person to say this party is for Batoro. Because you need to go to Karamoja for you to be voted. You need to go to Kisoro for the Bafumbura to vote for you. Even yourself, you wouldn't wish to say, my party is a Batoro party. But the reason is you are taking an infrastructure which runs the entire country, and therefore you need to have a national image. On top of the support, how will you then support? Unless you're saying this is a Batoro party, but I want to force you. But how will you force them? Because the democratic principles would show that it has to be voted. It is contradictory.
But Kenya has showed us that you can remain tribal, but also nationalistic. We've had the Kikuyu gearing behind Kenyatta. That has always been an open secret. The Kalenjin have always been behind Ruto, and he sits down to bargain as Kalenjins, as Kikuyu, how many positions are we going to get? Doesn't that give you more?
Of course, some party automatically would appeal to a particular community for some reason, but that is not to say that party is tribalistic. For example, NUP won in Buganda, but that is not to say NUP is a Buganda thing. And even at the same time, while NUP was winning, say for example, where we have a presidential election, it's not wholesomely that nobody would vote for Museveni. People would vote for both one, but also vote for Museveni. So even NUP, while it appealed, it got most appeal in Buganda for reasons that I don't think we can go into now. But even when it appeals, it's not, nobody will tell you that is a Buganda thing. So if you went and registered, and by the way, under the law, you are not supposed to register a party on that, of that aspirations, of that feeling. I think there's a prohibition under the law which prohibits registering a tribal
lastly,
party.
you're trying to narrow it down to a political party. For me, I'm not bringing it from a perspective of a political party. I'm bringing it from a perspective of people with the same social values coming together to advocate for a piece of the lion's share of the budget. People from a certain region, because the Eastern region should not be only a Sebasoga, there are Gisu there, but standing there and saying, we're not coming here as we want to start a political party. We're trying
but that one is catered for. For example, that one is encouraged in that is the spirit behind the formation of a body like Equal Opportunity Commission. That's why Equal Opportunity Commission, which is a government body, comes up with a research to map out the sharing of jobs in URA, in where. Equal Opportunity Commission has one of the mandate to equalize that, to say that if a region, for example, is seen to be disadvantaged, Equal Opportunity Commission, which is a commission established by body, is supposed to raise it to government for redress.
Thank you so much, sir. I want to just shout out to the people in diaspora who are always watching us. You are very, very pertinent in watching this particular show. I won't mention names because you are so many, but thank you so much. Let me come to you, Honorable Ochieno. Is it bad for the people of the North to say, we have created a Northern Bloc to come and advocate for change, for what they believe in, for part of their lion's share? Some believe that these things have not been shared equitably and it is unsaid. But many believe that this government is run by the Western people, or specifically the Banyankole. What do you think about that, sir?
If it's a pressure group, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, like
and I think in a way, Commander Awich was alluding to it. If it's a pressure group, I repeat. In any case, I nearly wanted the pressure group to emerge out of Karamoja. That would have brought all the people of Karamoja to ensure that nobody from NRA administration has an office in Moroto, and this is not incitement, it's very deliberate, sitting next to a lawyer here. If such a person is associated with theft of Mabati, I think it's absolutely right, but some of these guys come with their own other intentions. But it's broadly the case that why do we have jiggers in Busoga under NRA after 40 years, and we had the glory of UPC days, and we're missing. And Busoga College Mwiri, which was a Busoga institution, met the Ochienos, met the Rugundas, and met the Obotes, and today we go to, yes, there is no reason why we don't have such kind of a conversation. The other day I was at a funeral in Tororo. Happens to be a funeral of an entire school guy, you'll be happy. And I'm told the guy was a desk mate of Mr. Museveni in the entire school. And this gentleman was part of those people who were involved in the cooperative movement, Lint Marketing Board.
Yeah, I know him. He's a lot of 61, 66.
Yes. And that was the glory of Bukedi.
Yeah.
Bukedi in the last global multi-dimensional poverty index, my Bukedi is the poorest with 47%. And the people of Bukedi have got a right to mobilize and organize, including to say we're mobilizing a campaign to say no to NRA.
Because they believe they have been disenfranchised.
Absolutely. And there is a campaign known as Gongera Road Tarmac, no vote for NRA or Museveni or anybody else in NRA come next elections. I want that momentum to be built.
But isn't this what President Museveni calls the politics of identity that have been the problem of this country?
It's simplistic, and he's the creator of that, but I'm coming to that point.
Okay, sir.
But if you pick that and you maliciously politicize it, like Museveni politicized his UPM. That is chauvinistic. Mr. Museveni built UPM around a very specific identity thing, playing to the sentiments of particular people from Western Uganda and a particular section of, if you can call them the Kampala elite.
Really?
And
UPM?
arguing, yes. And
With Bidandi Sale and Kirunda Kivijinja.
Indeed, you better listen to me because I'm giving you
Kirunda
this.
Kivijinja, Bidandi Sale.
Absolutely, and I'm telling you this.
Kiyonga.
Yes. You see, so regionalize it. So identity politics, Museveni is the expert at it with the UPM. You know, so he pushed this thing that UPC was a party for Northerners and Protestants. Nonsense, not true. I'm an Easterner and a Catholic. He pushed that DP was a Uganda thing and Catholic. I can't comment for DP, but I'm not sure that's necessarily that representative. In terms of Catholic links to DP, there is a case. And Mr. Museveni argued that there was a need for a party, and he told the Semugeros, and taunted the Semugeros apparently very much. We don't have the space for it. And pushed for this thing that, well, there's a need for a new party that does not belong to many of those other things. And particularly in Western Uganda, not Angola, he pushed. So many people from Western Uganda, starting the broader ways with the triple R, with Bunyoro, Butoro, Angola, and Chigezim, many people joined NRA blindly. That's why some of them who joined
NRA UPM, which
many UPM, what I'm trying to say.
It's confusing.
Well, they're all
because NRA comes when,
all the same.
When the guns
Indeed. They joined this organization, UPM, which was a precursor, because Museveni was using UPM as a political thing to build eventually to take his UPM political. That's why I'm making a very important point.
Please do.
So, Museveni uses UPM as a political vehicle, but around that, granted, he has the likes of the Kitumusokes, Buganda, but really the idea was to push an agenda that by 1979-80, and by the time they go into the push, the thing was basically we. Two. When NRA was formed, let me tell you the story. When NRA was formed, when these guys went to the Luwero bushes, the narrative Museveni pushed was Wuno Oyomucholi. And this is on record. And thankfully, I quote referring from Milton Obote. So as a matter of authority, and you need to read these things. So then there's a narrative successfully built by NRM Museveni that the problem of Uganda was these northerners and easterners, by Chole, kind of stuff.
Which they're saying today is Banyankole.
And that's the dangerous bit of it, because I don't agree with either. You know what I'm trying to say? And that's the point. But the expert at this, the person who inserted this nonsense on our politics was Mr. Museveni. And so,
but wasn't it the reality at the time? It's a question.
You're a presenter. Let me just make this point. So Museveni successfully uses these things and pushes the emotions of Bantu people, particularly broader Bantu community, and see this Wuno, the other, and to an extent successfully works for him. It's not surprising that if you look then at the NRA of 1986, the point you were trying to make, the core that you're asking, Comrade Awich, they're predominantly a particular group, particular identity. It's not surprising that my good friends like Sarah Biret would tell you that as recent as maybe 2 years ago, there was once upon a time when there were 5 generals from one sub-county, kind of stuff, in an army. Meaning allegedly national army, after 30 years. So when it goes to that, it is terrible. But for the people of Ankole to mobilize and organize under Banyankole, Kwetere Cooperative Union, and push that we want a national government to make sure that they recognize that we are cattle keepers and these are privileges. It happens around the world. In the Americas, you can find farmers, particular sub-regions, states that predominantly push for cattle, they will ask for agricultural subsidy. When it comes to debate about taxation, which I hope we have opportunity to discuss, you'll see that the emphasis is around what serves the interest maybe of a cotton corridor of Teso, what serves the interest, say, of coffee corridor of Buganda, what serves the interest, and people come in as a group and as an identity, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with it.
What do you think about the narrative that Banyankole are the problem today?
That is an extremely unfortunate thing, because Banyankole are not the problem. The problem is Museveni and his NRA. Banyankole are not a problem. Museveni is the problem, and this NRM are the problem, and based exactly on what he did. And it's extremely unfortunate. And I think this is very important emotive conversation. I don't know how far we can go with it. I have a huge burden, and that's why I said at the beginning, people might have thought that I was trying to bash NRM at the beginning of this conversation. I feel very emotive about it because we founded this country, Uganda People's Congress, and our values and convictions about Uganda's broader identity is huge. I was privileged to have met a Munyoro man who was very generous to me 3 days ago at a funeral in Tororo, who was reminding me about the fact that UPC lost elections, lost the first government, in part because of our solidarity with Munyoro. The question of the lost counties. We were the ones who, at independence, pushed that, well, there's a Buganda conflict, there's a Buganda and Bunyoro have a conflict. We've got the one national Ugandan identity. We can't leave Buganda and Bunyoro to battle amongst themselves. We came in, and of course the consequences again cannot go into this. Okay. So no, considering where we are now as an East African state, considering where we're discussing a broader African unity and identity, considering what I told at the beginning, that I feel the pain, that I live London, in which the constituency that I was party for is voting for a Sierra Leonean refugee. And here in Uganda, we're still looking at politics, them versus us. It's extremely unfortunate. And in fact, I'll narrow it down to parliamentary constituencies, where in my Tororo and some other places talk about clans, which I don't know what the experiences are there. Particularly many of my friends who are in NRA in recent times, the last 20 years, you find actually people using their clan, they will tell you, oh, that village, my mother comes from that village, from that clan, so we will get votes from that clan. I think we need to find a way out. But the way out, the secret is, I've got a solution. The solution is politics of ideology. So the sooner people woke up and began to join political parties rather than individuals, join values rather. No, Uganda People's Congress is here. Hey. Ochieno is here. By the way, join me on Twitter. Come along, man. No, we are here. We are the future. Okay, no. So you join political parties based on ideas, in which case, therefore, your interest in Ankole is based on the values and whatever UPC promises and offers to be able to deliver onto the people of Ankole. Right. And the more you do that, the more you realize that when there's a UPC or a DP government promising something on coffee, promising something on cattle, the less you realize that, no, it's less about your brother, who you identify brother, but rather what they represent.
Okay. Let me come to you, Charles. First of all, they've talked about this particular issue. Is this politics of identity? What do you think about people going regional to advocate for some of the things they believe they need?
You started with Bijirwa. I have interacted with him and I've told him, I've advised him to drop the idea of being sectarian. Bijiro. Moses Bijiro. I've advised him. Now, the book...
Who is he?
The Musoga guy.
He's a political...
he formed a tribal thing.
A pressure group.
You make us understand.
Now, the book I've told you about, the Kenya looters and grabbers, the title sounds alarmist, eh? But the content is very rich. When I read this book, I realized why sectarian politics can destroy a country. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who originally was Peter Kamau, campaigned for independence on the platform of Chikuyu, not Kenya. When they succeeded having independence and he became the first prime minister, from day one until he got out of government, his mindset was purely Chikuyu. And because of that, these are some of the problems they are facing. Because even his successor, the late Mzee Moi, when he came in, his mindset was purely Kalenjin. Now the other ethnic groups, of course, became disgruntled. They lost their land. They lost their economic well-being because of the ethnicity of politics. This sectarian politics you are talking about. Look at the global terror. It is because a certain group of people look at themselves as Muslims, and therefore it is their religion that should dominate the world. So these problems are very, very critical. If you begin seeing yourself in the lens of a Muganda, I'm a Catholic, and therefore we should have advantage over others, then it becomes a problem.
But some people believe it's already a reality. Like, for example, you've heard of the
there is
narrative
no
that
justification.
Muslims are the ones who are doing certain
There is
acts.
no justification
But do you
for
believe
a
it's
wrong.
there?
I'm already conducting research. My organization is doing research on the persecution of Muslims vis-a-vis ADF support. Because
every terrorist
there
is
is
a
a belief that most of the ADF recruits are Muslims. So we are trying to establish this fact and look at the politics in that. Ethnicity is because people are still backward. So there's no justification. If you are enlightened, if you are exposed, there's no reason why you go around looking for a Munyankore to do business with. No. When you are seated on a plane, you are seen as a black person. The Europeans will not care whether you're from Tanzania, whether you're from Zambia, you're all black. Period. So, the medicine.
But at home you've seen people central voting a person from there.
Yes, but that is what
that's what I'm saying. Isn't it a reality that we're trying
that
to
is
blind
what we
ourselves
should
that-
eliminate, because it is terrible. I've told you when you the Kenyan politics, Ruto is in trouble because he cannot prescribe a cure that takes away the injustices these people have faced, beginning with the Kenyatta. Let's forget the colonialists because they really destabilized everybody. But beginning with the Kenyatta regime, which caused problems.
So as you conclude on that issue.
Now, in Uganda, we are on the same route, I'm sorry to say. And when you do try to understand Uganda as a sectarianism, it is true. Dr. Beretta is not wrong to say that. I was in the committee when they asked the late General Ronda why all the 6 generals were from one region. His response was that it was not by mistake, it was because they were very intelligent. That's how they
were there on merit.
that was his
argument.
argument.
Quoting him.
I've told you I was in the committee.
Which committee is that?
It was the Committee of Defense. And if I've not forgotten very well, it was either Alupo or Namayanja chairing that committee.
All right, thank you so
Now,
much.
as I conclude, Uganda, we still have an opportunity to dissociate ourselves from sectarianism. Anywhere you meet a politician believing in that sectarian politics, distance yourself, because it will destroy a country. There is no justification whatsoever.
Edgar, I'm really, really sorry.
We are going to go for a break, sir.
Okay.
When we come back from the break, I'll listen in from him and I'll also give Honorable Awich just a few minutes to reply to these particular messages, and then we shall enter the topic of discussion. 1 minute to 8 p.m. My name is Edgar Matthew Karahanga, and this is the Hotline Show.
Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally. Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the science media cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
Hi, welcome to the Political Dice.
empishi y'ebyobufuzi
It's controversial,
purely political,
well researched,
accurate and global.
Oyagala bya Parliamentary oba council.
ya state house oba ghetto,
Ani ayugayuga ku ground.
ani gwe baabuze
Okimanyi nga Dr. Kiza Besigye aleesa amaanyi.
olwo fadda bafutoli abateeseemu obuvaazi
Oba yo DP eri kuki?
olwo jeema
Bano ba MKCG bo baddawa.
abo bafuna CDF baamala tebabanja olwo baba ate bange bali kuki
Abo bo akina kulabisa simanyanga posturing tebabiri bali mu structure building. Naye ate ono ye.
ani oyo oba
Ye ali kuki?
oyo tumuleke tagambwa apanyiga mangu
Ebyo byonna birindira n'okudda Political Dice ku the Alternative Dig Talk nange Teddy Tenja ewamu ne
Farida Bikobere
buli wa Sunday
essaawa 2.
At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sewagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machindye, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for legal matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m., Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besigye every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are the Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. We are into the second and final hour of the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karahanga. Honorable Joseph Ochieno, as we are concluding, you had something to say. In just 2 minutes, please.
I think it's important what my brother Charles is talking about, but I just thought that I would slightly disagree with him, but to emphasize his own point. That this thing of identity is not necessarily because of people's, quote, backwardness, or meaning, people's lack of exposure. I think, unfortunately, my own lived experience is different. One, Awich was teaching us traditional growth as we're growing up. The traditional thing in Pathola, in Tororo, was that if you were a young boy who came to visit a neighboring village, or you come from another linguistic community, another identity, that is, you are a visitor and it's the responsibility of that family to protect you. In fact, we've always argued that those days in our times, when you're a boy who's going to look for girls in the neighboring spaces and you're new, you're treated as exotic. Meaning, in which case, if you're a Muganda guy who turns up somewhere in in Tororo, UN things, kind of stuff. But most importantly, our parents would protect you. And it's actually been said as part of the tradition, maybe except the chief's chair in Lango, you will possibly be able to be given a plate that is normally used reserved for visitors, although you're an average person. So culturally, I think as Africans, this living in diversity and working together is not bad. In any case, that's one of the things that caused the integration. In any case, part of that is also one of the reasons why even some of these tribal things that came, the conflicts, the contradiction that my brother Awich was trying to talk about, where people used to adapt from other tribes and so-called identities. And I've said finally also that the place in Uganda that I received the hospitality that I always remember is in Ankole. When as a student in 1984, I was on my way to seeing my cousin. I've talked about it again, in Katuna, and when on a trailer truck and the trailer breaks down, and this posh Munyankole guy comes in his pickup and picks me, one, because I was a student, that's the important thing, how we look after the youth, and other, and it was very clearly the case, I'm not from the area. And he picks a woman, a mother, a vulnerable woman with a young child because it was drizzling, and we sit in front of the pickup and everybody else sits behind.
Okay.
So that means these things work. But finally, the people who have entrenched identity politics in this country, so therefore, are not villagers, they're not people who are maybe semi-illiterate people in the villages. They're political leaders, they're corporate heads, they're very educated people, some of them are major professors, and in any case, in this case, this thing comes started from number 2, from State House. It's a dirty thing, it's actually backward in terms of personalities rather than people's academia status, and in this country, it must stop. People must learn to live the way Milton Bote lived with the citizens of this country, the way we try to build this nation.
Some people that are refusing it are the ones that are perpetrating and propagating.
Absolutely, and I think
it's
a dangerous thing.
Him my experience.
Because of time, I'm going to come to Awich. Because of time, we don't have time. Awich, you listen to what he's saying in just a few minutes, 1 or 2. Some people think that it's propagated by the people themselves in leadership. People who are refusing it are actually the ones who are practically doing it. Do you believe that?
I don't believe that because, one, President Museveni is on record for refuting politics of identity. And I think at one time he was pressed against the wall and he had to reveal the people who were in State House holding positions. While there could be a few faces seen, like from one area, but I think that time he opened up and he proved that his office was very nationalistic. And therefore, at that time, the allegation that it is being perpetuated by him was erased because he proved it. He opened up to State House and said, so and so is this, so and so is this, so and so is this, and he did it. And now that makes me talk of, because a lot has been alluded about the formation of NRA. You see, the formation of NRA had to take a specific people because here is a group of people going to wage a war against the government, which is treason. So the risk of confidentiality, the risk of secrecy at that stage was so high. You needed to take confidence who would not, information not leak to the state. And that formed the nucleus, the first 27. In fact, ironically, the first 27 had like 13 old boys of military school. People like Kagame, the president himself, people like Sande Mukuru, people like Guma, they are very in the back of it. But this was not on any sectarian basis. It was because you are fighting a state, you are fighting a government, and you need maximum secrecy. Now, ironically, these are the people who grew up in ranks because they went there early. Some of them had training before. So they formed the nucleus of the senior officers and therefore the general. This is basically which gave that.
So are you saying therefore the other identities were not trustworthy?
Let's come to Charles.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
At that stage, it would be risky to trust somebody else. That is, this is a matter of security. But later on, other parts of Uganda who joined, like Dr. Bata, became the most senior medical person. Ondoga Rea Maza became the highest ideologue. Amin Zakuru, the father of Gaddafi, who was a chairman, NRM youth. He was a commander of the mobile hospital. Karim Karim became the person who is known for having picked the biggest number of rifles, attacking an enemy and recovering. And they climbed to the highest rank. But that was at the stage where now security could be managed. And they had proved their cadetship. So this is really the position in NRM.
Thank you so much. Let me come to you, Charles, and we're coming to the topic of discussion today. President Museveni refuses to assent to the appropriation bill, and he sends it back to Parliament 4 days to the beginning of the financial year. You've always been a gentleman who has always thought through President Museveni's lens and head, and you've proved to be a person who has researched about him and studied him as a man and as a president. What is in the mind of Mr. Museveni returning this particular bill?
First of all, it appears now President Museveni is alone. These people are not helping him. They have abandoned
We
him.
have an institution of SEC.
Let's continue.
They have abandoned the president. So he's acting alone with probably the help of General Mohozi. The elite within NRM have totally abandoned Museveni.
Why do you say
Because, number one, some of them had hopes of participating in the succession of President Museveni. They have lost that hope. So now they have resorted to stealing, grabbing, looting, so that they can enrich themselves as much as possible. When you see what has been happening in the Parliament, it is no surprise that the President decided to return the appropriation bill, where he argues that 750 billion had been reallocated. Reallocated somewhere else in some other sectors. When you remember what Professor Gobi, the PS, Permanent Secretary to Treasury, argued in March this year, saying that Parliament doesn't have those powers of reallocation. It is a cabinet. Yes, that is Gobi, the man who is behind the economy. The man is an economist.
No, about the appropriation. Isn't the appropriation supposed to be made by
I was taught
MPs?
that for anybody to argue out a professor, you must equally be a professor.
We are misquoting you.
Gobi is a professor.
Maybe I'm misquoting.
Behind the popular concept of economics, the economics that works.
Yes.
So he has argued that Parliament may not have those powers.
Oh, you are misquoting him.
The President actually will not have returned the appropriation
So
bill.
you have changed to might not have, or does not have.
Oh.
You said Parliament might not have those powers.
Parliament
does not have
I'm giving
those
you the
powers.
man's arguments.
What did he say? He said
He is
might or
quoted.
does?
He is quoted as saying Parliament does not have
Now you have changed.
powers of appropriation, but they have powers of budget. He separated the two, budgeting and appropriation. That is Gobi. Now this is the thinking probably that the President has borrowed and says all the 750 billion where it was removed should be reinstated. So the budget should be passed as brought by the executive.
So what is the role of Parliament?
Now, Parliament, you know, the President has veto powers over these bills. He can decide to reject it. But when it goes back to Parliament twice, then it can pass.
Yes.
However, you should also be mindful that Museveni has a majority in a parliament in form of the NRM MPs. So it is not possible that parliament can defy his ways council or directive, because after all he has the majority. Therefore, why did we have to understand, why did Museveni reject that appropriation bill?
Exactly, that's what I asked you.
The budget committee, police has already summoned the clerks and parliament staff on that committee. I'm told, I think, more MPs are going to face police on that committee. So it is possible that the president also has evidence showing misappropriation on the side of the members of parliament.
Inflating their own...
Because some section of media says that some of the members of parliament diverted the money within the budget to benefit projects in their constituencies, like schools and hospitals, health centers. That is corruption already. Now, if that is true, and the president has that information, which is credible, then he is right to return the appropriation bill. But that in itself is a vote of no confidence in the parliament currently being chaired by Right Honorable Anita Among, because it is unprecedented. He has never done it. Returning the appropriation bill, arguing that they should approve the budget the way it is, the way it was sent by the executive. It is very unprecedented.
Does he have that power?
He has the powers. He has the powers. In fact, he does. He can. It is a courtesy, because a budget is the most powerful tool of governance.
Okay.
So, if it is a presidential system like we have in Uganda, then the executive, chaired by the president, has more powers on the budget than parliament.
Thank you.
What is the 700 million, 700 billion, what was it for?
The 700, you know, for years before, they would bring budget proposals, and then the MPs on the budget committee could decide, for instance, to switch, to move money from, let's say, a hospital and take it to a school.
Yes.
But without going above the budget ceiling. The money, the 72 trillion remains the same. However, money is switched, moves from
the same thing that he has
one vote to another.
Yeah. But let me ask, he says it, and many people are leveraging on it, but is it bad for a member of parliament that represents you, that represents me, to feel that as a job that is mine to appropriate money, I feel that we can reallocate these resources to this particular area, because in their mind, they feel like that area has not got enough, or have not got as they deserve, or they needed actually more. What is wrong with MPs reallocating resources?
No, but was it about reallocation, or was it about...
Yeah, because that's the main basis.
No, Charles's argument is not necessarily about reallocation, nor is it possibly the case anyway. It is simply that very likely these guys were moving around money to serve particular interests. So if it's a corrupt move, then the entire legislative assembly, maybe 90% of them should be locked up in Luzira. I've got spare rooms in Nagungera if they need some room. Come and lock them up there. But if they've locked them up there, I hope they'll also get some space from some of Museveni's ministers, maybe up to 30 of them. And then after that, maybe Museveni's own guys in the State House can join. Basically, that's what the whole thing should be all about. No, at the introduction, and you might have thought that I was going my typical usual political thing. I was being very deliberate when I was trying to tell you about people who send me text messages, including somebody who's an NRA councillor candidate. I think it's quite insulting, actually, to me, and they still support NRA and the club, These guys in prison. most of the legislators, as I say, don't know what their roles are. Many of the legislators are in part with what Charles said, have come to the realization that in this country, if the head is going in a particular direction, you get an opportunity to go to the Legislative Assembly, make money, just like most of the guys in NRM make money. Steal from Ugandans. Unfortunately, making money is wrong. Steal until Museveni drops retired, kind of stuff. And then when we start at power, when the Ochienos are beginning to have a conversation, you're starting from a point of view of trillions in your pockets, and then you go and boast. I think sort of really that's what's happening. And in any case, therefore, if it was the case that these legislators were actively saying that, look, your budgetary allocations disregards the fact that there are 30 district hospitals that are underfunded, one of which may be in my constituency. But I recognize that actually, if many of our colleagues here, perhaps one of the least serviced one is the other one maybe in Zombo, in West Nile, for which maybe even the legislator is one of the quietest, one of those, some MPs have got their mouths roped up, that they don't speak, Then you see these are genuine legislators, national legislators, using stuff that they pick from Charles's research and consultancy, and they're simply saying that, look, this is what needs to be done, and we're doing our job, This is not the case. The case is quite clear that people are basically fidgeting around money in a corrupt way. It is the case that possibly Mr. Museveni also recognizes beyond the corruption thing that there was an uproar. It is also the case that Mr. Museveni is not remiss to what's happening in neighboring Kenya. And so I'm not quite sure that Mr. Museveni would like to go ahead and assent to clear a budget, one, which is quite clearly corrupted, two, which is substantially inflated, three, one in which he knows that he knows, because it's actually the authority, but at the end of the day, this thing is going to come back and bite him. Because in any case, like, so those of us in the civil society will keep going, that maybe in the next few months, these things are going to get exposed. So he does not want to find his signature locked up into this thing. In any case, for him, he can manage to manipulate many of these other things, but at the end of the day, he still wants to come back to look relatively the cleaner.
But what does it speak of the sanctity of these arms of government?
They've never been.
The independent.
Since NRM came to power, they've never been. They've never been independent. This is a military regime. This is a military one-party military regime. And the in charge is Mr. Museveni. He said it several times. Who's Parliament? Is this equipment? Parliament controlled by 10 NRM soldiers, in many cases, who can go and whip people. If you want to joke about votes to do term limits and controversial things. An assembly in which is inflated by people who are NRA, for whom most of your taxpayers' money is used to make sure that people go ahead and join the Legislative Assembly. It's a corrupted institution. Of course, there are people allegedly from opposition, but by and large, neither here nor there. I think the issue is that
because we are justifying President Museveni's action.
I'm not justifying it. Thankfully, I'm not.
Feels like you're understanding him.
I'm contextualizing him. I am here as a political leader and somebody who's an observer on the issues.
Yeah, but whereas he's trying to make such a decision, or isn't he overstepping his mandate? No. And aren't we giving him a leeway? Because I'm not saying that because he's done it so he's right. It's an indictment on the crudeness of the entire system. That's what I'm trying to say. That the fact that he's doing is actually showing that it's a rotten system.
I'm also here.
Yes, I'm seeing you are here. But let's first continue, sir.
Can I donate my 1.5 minutes to my brother?
Donate it to me. I wanted to. He has given it to me.
I request. But whatever, which also is blackmailing us, because I see that. I wanted
to throw in something.
What I'm seeing is a dialogue between the two.
It's because it's his time. Like we first gave you a lot of time as these people
you have never given me that much.
Okay, he has donated his 1.5 minutes that was remaining.
Yes.
And my question to you is: some members of parliament feel, an example is Medad Segona. He says Museveni is disrespecting the institution of parliament. Isn't he overstepping his mandate as president of this country?
It's not. Let me start with that. The brief facts of this matter is the executive presented budget. Now, the point in issue 750 million, which was reallocated by 2 committees. First, the sector committee, committee, like say committee on legal and legal affairs, okay? If you have a committee on legal affairs, which oversees human rights, electoral commission, Ministry of Justice, that sector. Now, this committee, of the 750 billion, part of it, they picked it in what they call non-priority areas. In their opinion, that government had put it in non-priorities. So the committee took it upon themselves to say, we have seen priorities. So they relocated.
Isn't that
fine, I'm still giving you the brief facts. A similar thing was done by a budget committee. Budget committee also did it. So this tampering, which the executive is crying about, the tampering was done by 2 committees, the sectorial committee and the budget committee. Now, this affected 750 billion, which government had put it where they thought should be. Now, this raises more of a legal question than the professor of economics. He quotes the professor of economics and he says that you cannot argue with a professor unless you're a professor. I think that is in his area of economics. But the matter now is more of a matter of legal jurisprudence. For example, it is about what you're saying, the role of the executive vis-a-vis the parliament. The diction in the parliament is that parliament shall approve.
Shall.
Approve.
And appropriate.
And this same diction here means choice of words.
Exactly.
This same diction is used like approval of ministers. For example, when they said parliament shall approve ministers, what does it mean? Does it mean parliament will appoint new one, or parliament can it transfer that we have moved from Mr. X from defense, take him to education? So that's what I'm saying is not economic question as a professor of economics. So it is a legal question. What is the legal mandate of the 2? Because executive is saying it is us who plans for this country, not parliament. So parliament should approve what we have said. That is the argument of the executive.
You're sticking on approving, but there is also appropriation.
Yes. So government is saying in the appropriation you have to approve. You appropriate by approving. So now government, the executive is saying,
just bring the budget.
That is what I'm going to. I'm saying there's a philosophical legal matter here, which some people believe may end up into a constitutional court for an interpretation. Okay? Because both positions have stated it. Now, the executive is saying, actually in the opinion of Museveni, he thinks that if you set a precedent, where government says we are funding education and parliament say no, take it to health, then to where will you stop? Because parliament will now in future totally disorganize your budget. Okay? Yeah. So now that is why I'm saying some people feel it may end up in the constitutional court to interpret what does it amount to this. So the executive is arguing.
So the parliament has to be a rubber stamp parliament that whatever Mr. Museveni tables,
the interpretation that I've seen is that parliament can't point their concerns in this budget and send it back to the executive and tell the executive, the parliament, the budget that you have sent to us has this. For example, there are some arithmetic errors where figures were not adding up. That can also be part of what parliament will note. That in this, you had this, you had this. This one comes to 700 billion, but here you're saying it is 900 billion. So this is wrong. So mere arithmetic.
What do you consider, just a matter of continuation, what is the consideration of the meaning of oversight here in this case? That's a role of parliament.
I will
Please
address
first
it.
finish your point.
So, therefore, in the opinion of executive is saying, as parliament, you look at our budget, not your concerns, and bring it to us. That is
But
different.
the budget is my budget.
Yes, that is different.
They are supposed to.
Yeah, I'm telling you what the executive is saying. Noting, for example, including arithmetic errors, including mainly factual figures, errors in figures, and your views that while I have allocated this money to fuel in the Ministry of Health, you feel that this money should be taken to medicine.
Yeah, because it is
you,
water.
Yeah, that's what the executive is saying. The executive is saying the legislature should give that note and send it back to them. So that it is now the executive to say, yes, we have proposed a budget to parliament and this is the views of parliament. But not parliament to take it upon itself to do it.
Isn't the president overstepping? And that's what I asked you in the first place. Overstepping his mandate?
No.
Is that his role?
No, he is saying his mandate.
Just a minute. I thought as Ugandans, the legislators, they know the needs of Ugandans, they represent Ugandans, and this is the voice of Ugandan. Where does the president and the cabinet get the moral authority to refute the changes of that have been made by the population, by the people themselves? Are the people still in charge of their country? Do they have a right to stand by whatever they believe in?
You see, in parliament, there are different things that you may say. For example, if you talk of a resolution of parliament, a parliament passes a resolution of parliament is known to be non-binding to government.
It's advisory.
You won't say, because parliament has passed this resolution, that is the opinion of the people. It is advisory. Now, on matters of legislation, where section 1, section 2 says this, section 3 this, on a law, an act of parliament, it is a binding on the people of Uganda once passed into law. Now, the matter in issue is that, according to Museveni, about stepping his boundary, according to President Museveni, he's saying, I have not stepped my boundary. My boundary is, as executive, to plan. And it is not the work of parliament to plan. It is the work of the executive. So I have planned, and this is what I have done. I'm within my mandate. Therefore, if I've shared with you my plan, simply bring back to me what your concerns are. Don't change my plan. Changing my plan would mean now you have hijacked the role of planning from me to you.
Okay. Charles, he mentions that. So what is the role of a Ugandan?
You see,
why is that bill sent to parliament in the first place?
Karuhanga, your concerns would be catered for if we are dealing with an objective parliament, a parliament that has integrity. Now, this is a parliament that has been unaddressed. You know, I've been asking myself, why has President Museveni retained the Speaker Mongo, despite all these scandals? Now, when he made this decision to return the appropriation bill, that confirmed what I always suspected.
And what was that?
That the Speaker is damaged goods, the MPs are damaged goods, so you can use them for whatever case you want to use them. Because their image is tainted, that no Ugandan wants to hear anything to do with the parliament. In fact, now the president can do whatever he wants to do. Because this is not a parliament that can cause sanity anymore in governance. It's done.
Does that mean that the president now should just leave it? Should just not consider it?
No, for formality. For formality. And
no, even if they were the worst of them all.
Yes.
Even if they were looters.
Yes.
It's like you having a child who may be indisciplined, but they're still your child.
But he has not left them. That's why I sent it to them.
Karuhanga.
That's why I sent it to them. He has not left them.
We are talking about individuals who sat down and started apportioning, giving themselves part of the budget, even before being read. These are the characters you're dealing with. You see, Parliament should have been closed long time ago. We don't need it. We don't.
So President Museveni should just lead. As
No,
a-
but he has not left
Now,
Karanga. He has not left them. He has sent the budget to them, the bill to them. Is even on Wednesday they are going to vote on the same. So the process is ongoing. So what makes you think he has left them or he has sidelined them?
So
it is even this disagreement itself is an ongoing process and engagement.
First, continue before I want you to add in the fact that he brings it back 4 days to the beginning of the financial.
Probably that's that's when he got full information.
Okay.
Now, the issue of independence. You see, that concept, when you internalize it, it shouldn't mean that, for instance, the executive should be totally independent from legislature. The legislature should be totally independent from judiciary. No, these are like when we are cooking in village, the 3 stones where you put your
pendulum, the checks and balances. Yes.
Now, they are supposed to work together. Yes. However, there is also the concept of checks and balances. Now, the Parliament is supposed to check the executive.
Yes, sir.
The judiciary checks both. You understand?
Yeah.
That cannot happen where there are no democratic credentials.
Okay.
It is not possible. You must first observe the rule of law. Does it exist? Before you even talk of independence of judiciary, independence of parliament, are we practicing a sane democracy? We are not. Decisions are made and approved and only stamped by parliament. They are made by a caucus called the NRM caucus. Once that sits, if they want a law to go through, they sit and approve it. Then it is done. The other one is just ceremonial. So the actual parliament is the NRM caucus.
Have you heard?
But you've always mentioned that
Now,
even in this caucus, President Museveni is the one that really...
Exactly, that is what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Now you cannot begin talking of an independent parliament when we are running a system that is parallel to democracy. Yet we tend to call it democracy.
So let's not pretend around and actually look at the fact.
We are just pretending as a country. What we are running is a system which wants to resemble democracy, but it is not democracy.
Okay.
And some of us have always argued that it is wrong to keep pretending. Because then Ugandans cannot tell the direction of a country. You'd rather be bold.
So let's just say we are in a dictatorship or a one-party system.
Exactly.
There's no multi-party dispensation.
Then we stop pretending.
Comment on this money that was inflated in the last few days towards the budget reading, around 14 trillion. How does that really even come about? Is that actually also priorities? Is it right in your own research that you have made?
I observed the times of Kasami when he was still PS, the late. The times of Mahakanizi when he was PS. But a lot of things that are abnormal have happened ever since Mahakanizi left that place. A lot of things have happened which to me are abnormal. Probably they could be abnormal to me because I was not used to, I'm not used to seeing such things.
You want to give us a few of those that have happened?
Or the world is changing and probably the world is leaving me behind.
What are those that happen that you want
We are just in a different planet.
Professor Gobi sacks a fellow PS. the president reinstates her. Immediately. This is when the guy had just come into office. He sacks the PS of trade. The president reinstates her. Which means the PU is telling you directly that you have no power. Now you have a budget. You know the budget process takes now about 8 months, hours.
Exactly.
It is similar to Sweden. It is the longest period. Then towards the end, they say, oh, no, that was not the figure.
Exactly.
But even before that, the minister is questioned. Figures do not tally. About 3 times. He's bringing new figures, new figures. Every time he comes, new figures. Now, me as an observer, I say that probably it is either it is me who is not normal, or the things I'm seeing are no longer normal.
And actually Parliament, just to add on that, is trying to say, hey, you're inflating these things in an irregular manner. And for us, we believe that maybe we can appropriate some of this money to this, because maybe you have...
And that is where the problem is.
So
and that is where the problem is.
Before
you have the power to do that.
On that problem, what does this mean for... It feels like it's hasty. We're just adding numbers.
No, Charles has just told you
exactly
that we are in a dictatorship, and I've always told you we're in a dictatorship. It's an NRM dictatorship, and the High Command is in charge. And this is Museveni's thing. And all these things are informalities. And you young Ugandans, just wake up. Let's just wake up, have a critical conversation around table, push for some kind of national consultation, seek at some stage a government of national unity, and find a way in which, after reconciliation, be able to create a new Uganda. This is a mess after 40 years. To the extent, though, that you'll find it surprising that I want to agree, because with the Comrade Awich, and on the contradiction. No, because there's a contradiction. But Charles is telling you that it cannot happen because of an abnormality. It is actually true that in a free democratic system, the budget tabled would be a package of fiscal and taxation proposals, put on the table by the governing party as a way of managing the economy. So then, if it's an ideological left, Uganda People's Congress, where ours is very much about a big government when it comes to public services, and comes to big government when it comes to accessing services for younger people, when it comes to big government when it's about looking rural development, when it comes to big government when it's looking at infrastructure, when we talk about big government looking at poverty elevation and specific programs for places like Karamoja, where instead the NRM guys steal from, we pile that, draw up this budget as part of an internal party conversation, table it in a manner that functions, that works, that planners and consultants and experts like him come and say, yeah, these are feasible, this can work. You table it to the National Assembly. It's very unlikely that an NRA person who's been there for the last 39 years, 33 years, hang around these things, will come and tell you that, no, you need to fidget it like this. No, Kayunga Hospital has never been touched, Budgetary Hospital, he has no clue. In any case, he does not have the money. So from that perspective, Comrade Awich is right that, look, this thing has come from the executive, and Mr. Museveni's argument is that, look, this is our program, this is our vision, we're putting on the table. But the contradiction is that, no, Parliament also has got a right and responsibility to simply say that, no. Thankfully, because it's not UPC, you NRA guys are tabling these other things. But we know that 1 trillion is money for your girlfriends. Another $500 billion is money for your sons and sons-in-laws to go and do coffee trade business in Europe. From that perspective, Parliament will have a responsibility to respond, because you cannot just rubber stamp blindly. That is the madness which is going on at the moment, meaning that there are extremes of impossibilities from both sides. But in any case, anyway, I think But
he disputes that the Parliament has that power
to
appropriate resources. He says it's supposed to approve.
You know, I think we can have a conversation.
That is
Again,
what PS is arguing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, we're actually in a mess.
Because
It's very unfortunate that we're having this conversation here, but I'm not sure that we're having sufficient national debate. Ugandans have been praying that some Kenyans should be born Ugandan. Because I think if the Kenyans were born Ugandans for just 1 week, you will see the context of the content and context of this conversation. Because actually Ugandans are being taken for a ride. Because actually, for me, I feel very sad having this conversation. Because sometimes there's certain things I know, and certain things, what line of argument should I take? Rather than just another one Monday, we're coming here and having a conversation and maybe fudging and patching up, and then tomorrow is some reasonable business as usual.
I'm listening.
Yeah. Very sad.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand your particular point of view. That do you think at the end of the day, the conversations we are having are literally not going to impact in any way?
They are very important.
They're important, but nothing will change. Because radically this thing is very much about Mr. Museveni and his program and his project.
Let me give you
they have
information.
Sorry.
When Vestige came, we thought he would never have any impact.
Yeah. Okay, I get you.
But through his activism for more than 2 decades, you can see that there is a lot of impact. And he has become almost the sole opposition to Museveni. But Museveni will always listen to the issues that Vestige raises. Because he is an objective person, he is fair. Now, when we are discussing these issues, as long as we are objective, we create a lot of impact out there, knowingly or unknowingly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yes,
as you
so-
conclude, I just wanted to ask you this particular issue, because they said the reallocation of funds that has been done by Parliament has not been done by the technocrats. And the reason as to why they're justifying that, they're saying the Ministry of Finance has technocrats who actually sit back and vision for this particular country, who have the expertise in doing that. And for some of the people watching this are saying this reallocation cannot be done because these parliamentarians actually lack the skills and the competence to reallocate some. It's just a hint on what.
But that's part of the conversation. That's part of what we've been trying to say. That this thing is a mess and it's not working. But just to clarify part of what Charles is saying, I'm not a pessimist. Thankfully, Capital Radio has officially declared me that the most optimistic Ugandan and the most optimistic UPC. So I'm very optimistic about this country. So no, and the possibilities. No, I am simply saying that, well, we will have this conversation. But say, for instance, whether or not we have a substantive change over the next parliament, whatever happens within the next 1 week, away from what Mr. Museveni wants, on the basis of what my colleague said, particularly what Charles said, is unlikely to not happen. Okay. Generally, though, Ugandans need to continue to have this conversation. And that's why I'm quite impressed that I will normally get time every Monday to come this side of the town to have this conversation. It's important Ugandans should know that they're being taken for a ride by Mr. Museveni. It's important for Ugandans to know that the majority of the people they've got in the National Assembly are sellouts. Some of them have become thieves. I'm saying thieves in court, but may even say authoritatively thieves rather than legislators. It is also the case that people who are serving government, including ministers, have been officially declared and with evidence they're thieves. And actually in this regime has got a huge number of thieves. And all the things which are being stolen are monies and properties of the people of Uganda. Okay. And every time those things are stolen, it's the future of young Ugandans being stolen. So the sooner we're able to make sure that we put a stop to this, the better. Now, how we're able to do it is a slightly different conversation, but it's a conversation that we must have. Parliament, though, as I said, and again, as Charles has said, has in a way sort of lost credibility, and that's the conflicts that we're having. There are some of the things that they now don't have any moral basis on which to argue with Mr. Museveni. But now we're unfortunately saying it's basically samples, two sides, samples of the same thing.
Okay.
All I can say, Ugandans should wake up.
Okay. So Honorable Awich, what these gentlemen are trying to say is that it's already gone, really. We are pretending to try to say that there is a balance of power. It has been shown through evidence and over time that the executive has taken over the powers of the other arms of government. Do you agree with this particular narrative?
I don't agree. You see, for them, if for example, the executive had been deprived of their role, they would say that is democracy. Now that
because it suits them.
Yes, it suits them. Now that the executive is maintaining its space, that is not democracy.
That is overstated.
For example, you see, we have election every 5 years. Every political party markets its manifesto. One of the flagship things we marketed was Paris Development Model, which we put money.
Yes,
Imagine if we had that parliament which has the power to reallocate. The people voted for us because they knew if we win, we would give money through Paris development. And they would develop by producing what we want to give them to. Now, because you have a parliament which has a role, you put money for Paris development. You say, no. That money we put it in fishing. We want to buy nets and buy what and this. Or you have a parliament where you have put money for paying judges, and they say, no, we as parliament fail put it on teachers. Where will you stop? Where will you stop? So
just a minute, they have a basis that you as the person who's supposed to design that, you are fidgeting with it. The numbers are inaccurate, you're putting things on the last
can
minute.
be a
What does that
arithmetic
speak to,
That is
to
an
the
arithmetic
competence of you?
If it is competency, then it can be addressed as such.
So do we trust you?
If it is competency, even the Committee on Public Service can recommend a dismissal of some officials, and government will think about it. But if you now want to address competency by doing their work, then it's total mess. Therefore, I still want to maintain that the executive is doing their space, that they plan for this country and bring it to Parliament. Parliament is supposed to look at it and take back their feedback. We have seen what you have done. You want this money for the judges. We thought it would be for teachers. We have seen these figures. It doesn't add up. You check it. So they take it back. But not to say, I have seen this money. This is non-priority. I've changed it. As Parliament, I've changed it. You won't go anywhere. Tomorrow you'll put money for defense. They'll put it for local government. Tomorrow you'll put money for teachers, they'll put it for judges. It can't work like that. The executive has a role to plan. The only mutual relationship with the legislature is to look at it and give their views. So that is it. I also want to take this opportunity to comment about the role of a party caucus. And I'm not talking of NRM caucus. I'm talking of any party caucus and in any democracy. First of all, in a democratic organization where you have multi-party, people are elected on the basis of their party. For example, you do not need a member of parliament from Karamoja standing on NRM to devise his own manifesto. The manifesto of a member of parliament in Karamoja should be the same manifesto of a member of parliament in Kisoro, save for the detail that the party is standing on as program for that area, say for Karamoja, if there's going to be buying iron seats for Karamoja. Therefore, the presumption of a caucus is that you're already going as members of the same family.
Yes. That's the idea, by the way.
And I'm saying this, I'm not saying this in NRM caucus only. I'm saying caucus in all of it. Therefore, it is healthy for a party caucus to take a position and go and defend it on the floor of parliament. It is not unhealthy as it seems to think it. In fact, it is unhealthy if the party starts to fight in the plenary among themselves. See what are this one? Where are they coming from? They are now fighting among themselves.
No, but
you mean they don't have a party position?
What he's trying to assert is that Whereas you're looking at it from that perspective, here he's saying it comes from a perspective of one man patronizing the rest of the members of parliament and inserting his idea on them.
Then don't blame the caucus. But if you went a step further, therefore, are you privy to the democratic discussions that take place in NRM caucus? The NRM caucus is the most democratic. For example, if you have ever dared to see the argument between Honorable Kotogong and Museveni in caucus, you can't believe it. That is itself a sign of...
I had was the one of Miriam Machembe.
Okay. So in other words, I'm telling you, in other words, I'm telling you that in a movement caucus, it happens even in Kololo over coffee, where they say no until they have to go back.
Right.
So you can't say in an NRM caucus it is rubber stamping, or NRM caucus lacks democracy, or NRM caucus is a Museveni thing. Far from it. Far from it. You go and check.
Okay.
It's, if you get into movement caucus, it's like a meeting of rebels.
We don't want to get
no
there.
Way. It's very democratic.
That's going to be
It's very democratic.
Just a minute, let him give us his parting shots so that we can come to you.
He has already done so.
Please give us your parting shots, sir.
He has said Museveni is breathing.
No, the parting shots for today's discussion.
Yes, sir.
For today's discussion, my parting shots is that I totally agree that we should use our traditional networks for purposes of strengthening the community, and we shouldn't use it for disorientation at a national level. Because this network works, like I told you in the case of Lango, the clan is for birth, for death, for marriage, and for death. That's why when you lose a person, it is the clan who will come and bury.
Thank you so much.
Then the other thing is that we have discussed two things. The other thing is that we need to come clear with the jurisprudence. That is the science of law, in particular in budgeting and appropriation. What is what it needs to be argumented clearly. The role of the legislature and the role of the executive in the budget process, because it looks like the debate is at its infancy. Normally in such a situation, constitutional court helps to argument it and puts a position so that we are out of it forever.
That gentleman is the NRM Director for External Affairs, and he's also a senior counsel. So he has all the legal mandate to talk about what he talks about. Sir, your parting shot.
First of all, I wanted to remind him that Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga was thrown out of speakership because she was big-headed. According to Museveni, she was frustrating their programs. Now, on the...
Your parting shot.
He has reminded you.
Your parting shot.
Because
I thought you picked me first so that I show the example of how a parting shot looks like.
What an indisciplined
yes, I thought I demonstrated how a parting shot looks like.
I the fact that he's indisciplined. He's one of the most disciplined gentlemen.
I'm very disciplined.
And I want to add that every time you ask Honorable Awich a question, he answers the question.
I don't deviate.
He does not deviate from the question.
Okay,
So
my parting shots, of course, our system does not solve anything. You can see in Kenya, it's not solving their problems. And other, of course, less developed countries. Yet we have a huge chunk of young people who are becoming frustrated day by day. They are energetic, they are educated, they want to work and live a better life. They cannot do that because of the system of governance that our leaders have been implementing. However,
30 seconds, please.
I've been internalizing what Gaddafi wrote in something called the Green Book. He proposes a bottom-top system But of course, maybe at an appropriate time in the future, we can have a discussion. I also felt a similar thing, that the bottom top is the most appropriate, that issues should come from the people, not, for instance, Museveni, that he says, today because I'm giving you money for a myoga.
Please, let me just stop you there. In 30 seconds, and let 30 seconds be 30 seconds.
I hope that a future government post-Museveni returns to what UPC did, meaning strengthening institutions, meaning that we'll be able to have planners at Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. We shall have that ministry back. Ministry of Finance, make sure that we have those ministries back. Parliament to do its job and to make sure that in the event that government sends a budget to the National Assembly, it's respectfully done, and it's done with no other reason but for the service of the people, meaning therefore that monies will go to the services that don't know tribe, that don't know religion, that don't know social status. That will be the UPC of the future, but today, until we reach that time, it's basically a total mess under NRA. All I can say, wake up Ugandans, see what's happening in Kenya. Whatever is happening in Kenya, we don't want it today in Uganda. We don't want our legislative assembly to be banned, but nor do we want impunity. Right. Young Ugandans should wake up because their future is being played around by this NRA bunch.
All right, thank you so much. It's exactly 9 p.m. We've come to the end of this particular discussion. My name is Edgar Matthew Karahanga. I'll just end with what a gentleman mentioned, that is General Sejusa David Tunyefunza. He said that in their time, they identified a problem and they did everything possible to, address that particular problem by even putting their bodies online, and that was their time. And the question he asks you as a young person that is watching me, what are you doing in your time? My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. This is The Hotline Show.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.